Seth Rollins has been WWE's workhorse for over a decade, and the question I want to explore today is whether being that good at that job has actually cost him something important. Before we get to any of that, we need to go back to the beginning, because Seth Rollins did not arrive in WWE already polished and perfectly packaged. He built himself from nothing on the independent circuit, working under the name Tyler Black. On the independent scene, in promotions like Ring of Honor and Full Impact Pro, Tyler Black developed a style that combined technical wrestling with high-risk aerial moves and a physical intensity that very few people his age possessed. He was willing to do whatever the match needed. He would bump hard, he would go long, he would adjust to his opponent on the fly. These are the skills that would later make him indispensable to WWE, but at the time, they were simply survival tools on a circuit where you had to earn every reaction. His tag team work with Jimmy Jacobs showed early signs of something crucial, that is, the ability to do more than just wrestle. He could inhabit a character. He could make a crowd feel something beyond just appreciation for athletic ability. And when he eventually captured the Ring of Honor World Championship and held it for over 200 days, the industry took notice. WWE signed him in 2010, but here's where the story gets interesting. Because signing with WWE is not the same as succeeding in WWE. When Rollins arrived in developmental, the system nearly chewed him up and spat him out. He would later admit that he almost lost his job.
One more negative report comes back, we will fire you. I was ready to I was like, what am I doing here? What am I wasting my time? This is nonsense. I can go do, I can go make more money elsewhere. I can gain it. I was close. I had a mentor down in Florida named Joey Mercury. And he was one of the guys who talked me down and said, listen, just do this and good things will happen.
And the message was essentially this: adapt or go home. Rollins adapted. He embraced the system, and the moment he did, the machine embraced him back. He won the inaugural NXT championship. He earned the trust of management, and then, in November 2012, he debuted on the main roster alongside Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose as a member of The Shield. The Shield is one of the most important factions in modern WWE history, and looking back at how it worked, you can already see the blueprint forming. Even inside the group, there was a hierarchy. Roman Reigns was the protected powerhouse. He was the one Vince McMahon had already decided would be the next face of the company. His job inside Shield matches was to come in late, look dominant, and avoid taking damage. Dean Ambrose was the mouthpiece, unpredictable, charismatic, and organically loved by audiences in a way that was hard to manufacture. And Seth Rollins? Rollins was the engine. He took the hardest bumps. He executed the most complicated sequences. He controlled the pace and psychology of the matches. He was the one making everything else work. Even in a dominant three-man group, Rollins was already playing the supporting role that would define his entire career, and to his credit, he played it brilliantly. The WWE television history. Rollins turned on his brothers, aligned with Triple H and the Authority, and became one of the most compelling heels in the company. He was the opportunist, the man who chose power over loyalty, and management rewarded him with the Money in the Bank briefcase, a guaranteed championship contract. At WrestleMania 31, Rollins cashed that briefcase in during the main event between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Rollins got elevated and Reigns got protected. The narrative was saved. Rollins was useful, even in his greatest moment of personal triumph. His 2015 championship reign was genuinely impressive. He was the undisputed top heel of the company. He unified the WWE and United States championships. He had Match of the Year candidates almost every month. And then, in November 2015, at a live event in Dublin, he tore his ACL, MCL, and medial meniscus all at once. He was stripped of the title. He was out of action for months, to pinpoint exactly, but the mentality shift became clear over the following years. Rollins went from being a chosen one to being a necessity, and there is a significant difference between those two things. A chosen one gets protected. They get the big matches at the biggest shows. They get to look strong even in defeat. Their path is maintained by corporate decision. A necessity gets deployed wherever the gap is. Need someone to carry a mid-card championship and make it feel important? Deploy Rollins. Need someone to anchor 2 hours of Raw when the top stars are absent? Deploy Rollins. Need someone to have a technically brilliant match with a performer who has limited range? Deploy Rollins. Need someone to put over a new acquisition without making the loss feel damaging? Deploy Rollins. He became the solution to every problem WWE had. The World Heavyweight Championship, the title WWE introduced in 2023, specifically because Roman Reigns was barely appearing on television. And who did they give that new title to? The workhorse. Over a period of roughly 31 weeks as champion, Rollins defended his title 57 times across television, pay-per-view, and house shows. 57 times in 31 weeks. In the same time, Roman Reigns was Universal Champion across a stretch that lasted over 3 years. Reigns defended his title 53 times total. Those two numbers are not even close, and they tell you everything you need to know about how differently these two men were positioned. Reigns operated as an attraction. Rollins operated as the product. When Cody Rhodes returned to WWE at WrestleMania 38, he needed to be established immediately as a main event presence. He had left the company years before, built a career in another promotion, and now needed the audience to believe he belonged at the top level. Who did WWE choose as his opponent? Seth Rollins. The two of them had a trilogy of matches across 3 consecutive pay-per-views: WrestleMania, WrestleMania Backlash, and Hell in a Cell. Rhodes won all 3. Clean sweep. Now, those matches were brilliant. That feud was one of the best storytelling achievements of the modern era. Rollins was extraordinary in his visionary persona, delusional, theatrical, completely committed to the character. But the outcome was predetermined by the corporate objective, which was to establish Cody Rhodes as the hero destined to eventually defeat Roman Reigns. When you are the man who can be trusted to protect an injured colleague through a main event, you become indispensable in that support function, and the company will keep using you in that function because losing that function would cost them too much. The character evolution Rollins has put himself through is its own story, and it deserves proper attention. He reinvents himself constantly. The Architect, the Kingslayer, Beast Slayer, the Monday Night Messiah, the Visionary. Each persona is a distinct creative statement. Each one has a different aesthetic, a different psychological foundation, a different relationship with the audience. A traditional, stoic protagonist who loses a major feud drops in the audience's estimation. That is just how the psychology works. But the Visionary? The Visionary can lose at WrestleMania, show up the next night on Raw in a sequin jacket and a fur coat, start singing his own entrance theme, and the audience forgets about the result entirely. They are too busy enjoying the spectacle to process the defeat as meaningful. There is one more element I want to address before we get to where Rollins is now, and it is the relationship between him and Roman Reigns. Rollins holds an advantage. Every time Rollins won a major world championship before 2023, he did it by pinning either Royal Rumble. When the two faced each other for Reigns' title, Reigns could not beat him cleanly. He chose to intentionally get disqualified, taking the loss but keeping the belt, because the booking acknowledged that Rollins winning in a straight fight was believable enough that they could not simply have Reigns pin him. That is a subtle but important piece of storytelling. The company simultaneously treats Reigns as more valuable while booking his matches in ways that imply Rollins might actually be the better competitor. The WrestleMania 40 story is the best encapsulation of everything I have been saying. Rollins aligned himself with Cody Rhodes to take on Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. Over 2 nights, he competed in a grueling tag team main event, lost his World Heavyweight Championship, and absorbed a significant amount of physical punishment, all in service of the larger narrative. And then, in the climactic final scene of the entire weekend, Rollins walked back to the ring in his old Shield gear. Reigns, faced with the choice of finishing off Cody Rhodes or taking revenge on the man who betrayed him with a chair a decade earlier, chose the chair. He struck Rollins, and in that moment of distraction, Rhodes pinned Reigns and ended the longest championship reign of the modern era. Rollins was the emotional linchpin of the entire story. His history with Reigns was the psychological trigger that caused the finish. Without Rollins, the ending does not work. Without Rollins, the drama falls apart. And yet, the champion was Cody Rhodes. The man with the historic, legendary moment was Roman Reigns, completing a decade-long story arc. And Rollins? He went home without the title, without the definitive moment, and without the spotlight. He built the house. He just does not get to live in it. But here is where things get genuinely interesting. After years of playing the workhorse, of being the reliable constant that WWE leans on when everything else is uncertain, the company made a genuine attempt to reposition Seth Rollins as something more than just the person who makes everyone else look good. At WrestleMania 41, something happened that was one of the most shocking moments of 2025. Paul Heyman, who had been by the side of CM Punk going into this match, appears to have betrayed CM Punk for Roman Reigns, only ends up turning his back on both of them and aligned himself with Seth Rollins. Rollins followed that by forming the Vision faction, recruiting Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and positioning himself as the mastermind, controlling the situation from above. He won a second Money in the Bank briefcase, cashed in on CM Punk in another shocking moment of the year, revealing his knee injury was just a work. He became World Heavyweight Champion again after a little over 2 months. At Crown Jewel, Rollins faced Cody Rhodes in the main event for the men's WWE Crown Jewel title, and in a match that perfectly summarized everything Seth Rollins has ever been, he found a way to win in the most Seth Rollins way imaginable. With the referee down, Rollins reached for a Rolex watch, a gift that Rhodes himself had given him, and used it as a weapon. He followed up with his finisher, covered Rhodes, and walked away as champion. He finally got a win over the American Nightmare. For one moment, it felt like the Visionary had finally seized the throne he spent his whole career building. But professional wrestling has a way of reminding reminding you that nothing lasts. The shoulder injury Rollins suffered during that crown jewel match caught up with him fast, and then, on an episode of Monday Night Raw shortly after, the story took a turn that honestly should not have surprised anyone paying attention. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, the two men Rollins had recruited to protect him, the muscle of the Vision, turned on him. He was forced to vacate the championship, written off television. The workhorse, even at the moment of his greatest elevation, could not escape the cycle. His road back led him to Gunther, a grudge match, a hard-hitting, physically brutal rivalry that culminated on night 1 of WrestleMania 42. And if the crown jewel chapter was Rollins finally getting the prize, WrestleMania 42 was the universe reminding him of his place. Late in the match, Braun Breaker came back to ringside and speared Rollins on the outside. While Rollins was broken on the floor, Gunther locked in a sleeper hold. Rollins fought. He always fights, but his body gave out before his will did, and the referee called it. Gunther won by submission. Then Breaker ran top speed down the ramp and speared him again. So here's where we actually land with Seth Rollins. He briefly held the crown. He wore the king's clothes, spoke the king's words, and then the company cycled him right back into the familiar role. The man who takes the punishment, elevates the story, and ends the night putting someone else over on the grandest stage. Gunther walks out of WrestleMania 42 looking dominant. Braun Breaker walks out looking like a wrecking machine, and Rollins walks out having made both of those things possible. Even when he gets the crown, he does not get to keep it. Even when he builds the faction consumes him. The mountain always finds a way to throw him back down, because throwing him down serves the next story. He is a first-ballot Hall of Famer, the most complete performer of his generation, and WWE will always need him more than they will ever fully reward him. That is the curse. That is the blueprint. That is Seth Rollins. Look, if you watched this whole thing, I genuinely appreciate that. The fact that you stuck around to the end means a lot. If you got something out of it, hitting the like button helps more than you think. And if you want more of this, the subscribe button is right there. I will see you in the next one.